It seems that we have an insatiable desire for more. More, the more the better. If I get more, then I'll be happier. More food. More possessions. More money. More glory. More status. More clothes. More chocolate. If I just get that, then I'll be happier. And once we get more, we keep it. We hoard it. There's that hoarding thing I hear that's on TV, that little thing about hoarders, and we can see how people seem to, we're a little bit off, hoard stuff. But we don't have to look at them. We can look at our own closets, our own freezers and refrigerators, our own storage bins. I hear now that some storage bins offer playing music to your stuff. Have you heard that? Yeah. So they stuff can enjoy it. Getting more is somehow better. And there's kind of like, that's how we act. It's how we live. And our commercials play into that by giving us more things to choose from. All sorts of stuff. You just buy this product, well then you'll be happier. Well, of course, that's not what Jesus says. Jesus says something completely different. He says, take care to guard against all greed. Wanting more and more and more. And we find several reasons for that in today's readings. The first one comes from Ecclesiastes, with Kohelet says, vanity of vanities, says Kohelet, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. You work your head off, your fingers to the bone all your life, and then you die and leave it to somebody else. Vanity of vanities. What good is that for us? I read a story. It was about Leo Tolstoy. Had a short story. It's called "How Much Land Does a Man Need?" And in that short story, a peasant was offered, if he paid 1,000 rubles, he could have all the land he could walk around in 1 day's time. But the trick was, he had to get all the way around from where he started to where he ended by sunset, or he would lose his 1,000 rubles and wouldn't get any land. So he took the little offer, and he took off, and he started up here, and he went all the way down, all the way around here, and the sun was setting in a rather thrilling finish. He was racing, towards the starting point, the finish line there, and he was so exhausted he dropped dead and died short of the finish line. And what they ended up burying him in was a grave that was 6 feet long, which kind of answered the question, how much land does a man need? We kind of look at things as if they're going to make life for us, like we could buy life, and we can't. That's one thing. The second thing is this. I've been thinking about this all week, really. It says that it's that need can be satisfied. I need to eat to live. And there's a certain amount that we need to eat to stay alive. And a little bit more, most of us eat anyway, but need can be satisfied. Greed cannot be satisfied. You agree with that? Greed cannot be satisfied, because the more we get, the more we want, and the more we want, and we want more. And when you look at the millions of dollars some professional athletes are making. Okay, I'm making $15 million a year, but this team is going to offer me $20 million a year. What do you need that for? Well, You just kind of like pile it up. But we don't have to talk about $20 million a year. We can say, what is it that we need and how much more do we gather to ourselves? We've got a good story of that in today's gospel. This guy has a really good harvest, and he says, well, there's not enough room for my harvest. So what he could have done is he said, I have been so blessed by God, I'm going to share my blessings with other people, because even though I have plenty, they don't have enough to live on. So therefore, I am going to give them this food that I don't need and they do. He could have said that, couldn't he? But what he said was, let's build larger bins and let's keep it all to ourselves. Let's build larger closets and keep our stuff in there. That's what he could have said. That's what he did say, And God says to him, you fool. Tonight your life will be required of you. And what are you going to do with all this stuff? Where's it going to get you? Need can be satisfied, greed can't. And when that greed is there, we're not happy unless we get more, and we always want more. So it's one thing to look at when Jesus says, take care to guard against all greed. For though one may be rich, one cannot buy his life. And the third thing is this, that greed divides people. Anybody here ever heard of an inheritance dividing a family? Anybody ever heard of that? Yeah, that's what we heard about in the gospel. First, the guy in the gospel comes up to Jesus and doesn't say, hi, Jesus, I've heard a lot about you. You're a really good preacher, and I hear you're a miracle worker. He doesn't say anything. He walks up to him and says, tell my brother to give me my part of my inheritance. It's the first thing he says, without recognizing who Jesus is. And we've all heard of situations where there's some kind of inheritance from someone who has died, and there's a big fights over it, and families don't talk to each other for years. Greed divides. It brings jealousy. It brings unhappiness. But instead, we hear what Jesus says, and we also hear what St. Paul says in that second reading in the letter to the Colossians, where he says, seek what is above. But what is above? Those things that last are what is. Those things are what are above. The things of God. Some of us older folks might remember Jerry Kramer. He was a lineman for the Green Bay Packers, mostly in the 60s. And in the 60s, he wrote a book that was called Instant Replay. And in the book, he asks the provocative question, what's my purpose here on earth besides playing the silly game I play every Sunday? So it was a bestseller at the time. About 20 years later, he wrote another book, and it's called Distant Replay. It opens with this provocative question. What have I done in my life? Kramer asks, and Kramer answers regretfully that he failed to do the one thing that he should have done, pass on proper values to his kids. He writes, I hadn't done for my children what my father had done for me. What would you rather have, a few extra bucks in the bank or some values to live by? What lasts? What is of God? What is of God is love and justice and peace, values, service to one another. So instead today of thinking about what it is more that we want, we might think about what it is that what we have that we can give away. Let's start with what we don't need. What is it that we have? What is it of our even time and of our talents that we have that we can give away and share with somebody else who needs it? Those things that last. Those things which will make a difference in life. So that when our time comes to move on from this life to the next, we can look around and say, made a difference, a positive difference that I was here. I had something to live for. I knew what it was. It was for the things of God. And that's the reason for which I was made. Jesus says, be careful to guard against greed of all kinds.